Then I'll go live again.
Sorry,
3, 2,
folks.
1. All right, we are live again. I had a bit of difficulty. It said difficulty playing the video. I don't know whether it means it wasn't recording and it wasn't going on. I'm new to all this stuff, so we are back on with part 2. Okay, we're back, and we're going to go to something called the Urantia Book, which we've been discussing for a while, and basically the premise of it that I want to go in today is it's like a supersession of like the Christian Bible. Basically what it says is the person who we know as Jesus Christ was somebody called Michael of Nebadon, and that person is the
Creator of our universe.
correct, yeah.
Yes.
And he's the creator, the ruler of the universe, which I think means this galaxy for our purposes.
Actually,
or what? Go ahead and speak
that's
to that.
I've actually been struggling with that because I mean, universe, galaxy. It's like, oh my God! It's like I've struggled.
The way they describe a local universe in the book seems to be like a galaxy, but again, I'm wide open to discussion on this.
Well, I've come to the conclusion that Michael of Nebadon is a universe creator, and a universe is a collection of galaxies.
Okay.
And I think the reason why I have trouble struggling with this is because, I mean, the thought of a universe is just huge. But the Urantia Book clearly states that there's like a little over 700,000 Michaels who are creators. And so I'm like, okay, so that is approximately 100,000 creator sons per universe. And I'm like, okay, I might be able to wrap my head around that.
That's in all the 7 super universes.
That's in the 7 super universes.
Okay, so how many per local universe? Let's say
about 100,000, yeah, over 100,000
per. Okay, 7 super. All right, so there's 7 super universes. So in one of these, 1/7, 100,000. Okay, so there's 100,000 of these local universes in one super universe, and that could be several galaxies.
Several galaxies, and
okay.
that's where because the thing is that we've got tens of millions of galaxies in our universe.
Yes.
And that was the number that I was struggling with, because I mean, it is much easier to think of Michael as a creator of a galaxy. And, and it's like, okay, creator of a galaxy, we've got tens of millions of planets in one galaxy. Okay, that's a lot easier to wrap your head around than to think of a universe with tens of millions of galaxies. That's really tough to wrap your head around. But then it was shown to me that the truth of it is that Michael is the creator of this local universe with tens of millions of galaxies. And I'm just like, okay, now how does galaxies fit in? And I was told or shown that each galaxy has a seed planet. One seed planet. And that seed planet, that one seed planet is a father fused, spiritually fused planet.
Okay.
Now, there can be other planets in this galaxy, but they're not father fused. They're spirit fused beings. We are father fused beings. We have the seat for the thought adjuster, which is a sliver of the Father Spirit, which indwells us. And then you have the spirit fused planets, and they get fused with a sliver of the local universe creator, in this case, Michael of Nebadon, that we know of as Jesus of Nazareth on this planet. And so I was like, oh, okay. So basically, what you begin when you carry this forward, and when you actually look at other solar systems, you realize that our solar system is a junkyard. It really is. Well, it's a graveyard, is what it is. We're living in a graveyard because most other solar systems out there have 2 planets that can sustain life in that local solar system. We have 1, but we also know today that Mars once had an atmosphere. What happened there? That's a different story altogether.
The book doesn't really mention
no,
that, does it?
But
it may hint at it.
It hints at it, but when you read the book and you know,
right,
the Babylonian stories and the Mesopotamian stories, you begin to get a good idea of what happened in this solar system, and it all has to do with the Luciferian rebellion, 100%. And so basically, what I have concluded is that when you have a seed planet, the indigenous life forms are to evolve on that planet to the point to where they can leave that planet and spread out to the planets in their local solar system. In our case, we would have spread to Mars, and then that would have been our, like, it's like a toddler being able to play in the backyard in their sandbox, as opposed to being stuck in the house, because they're a baby.
Yeah.
So they're a baby, they're in the house. Play crib, mat on the living room floor, you're there, you're making sure that they're safe. The environment is controlled because you're in your house. Then they get to like 2 or 3 years old, and you start taking them outside in the summertime, and then, by the time they're 3 years old, you're letting them play in the backyard by themselves, but you got a view from your window.
Yeah.
You know exactly what they're doing in the backyard. That's basically what it would be like for us to start colonizing Mars. We're just toddlers, and we can see Mars in the night sky. It's not that far away, easily relatable, but yet we're like flying back and forth now. And we're building up our technology, we're testing it, we're developing it, we're just getting better at it. And now that we have another point in space, we can test our technology between these 2 planets. So so first we get good at getting off the ground, which we're not great at it, but we're better. We're pretty good at it, actually, and we're good at landing so far in a real, as far as I'm concerned, primitive way, but we're doing it. So that's, so technology would start to develop on the back and forth, because the need would arise and then after a while, people would, they would start to want instantaneous communication between 2 planets. So right now, I think it's like a 8-minute delay between Earth and Mars. Something like that, maybe 6 minutes. But anyways, there's a radio delay.
Yeah.
Eventually, if we settled on Mars, our technology, we would have found a way to have instantaneous communication between the 2 planets. And then after like maybe a couple of centuries of back and forth between Earth and Mars, and maybe settle on the moon, we might jump out to another planet, we might even go to Venus, but we're exploring our local solar system, and we're getting better at building things. Our technology is getting better, we're getting smarter, and we're learning things. And then eventually we would leave our solar system, and then we would go out into our local galaxy. And there is where it's supposed to be. We would spread out into our local galaxy, and this galaxy is ours. It's ours. It belongs to us. It was made for us. Michael made the galaxy for us. Now we're going to go out into the galaxy, and we're going to meet spirit-fused beings, and they will complement us, and we will complement them. And this would be so that we could learn to work together. First within our local galaxy, where it's safe, so that if we decide that we're going to slaughter all the spirit-fused beings because we're ignorant, then it does not leave our galaxy. It stays within our galaxy, and then of course, if we continue down that road long enough, we'd end up destroying ourselves anyways.
So it's contained.
And yeah, it's contained, and we just end up being a failed experiment. But but hopefully by the time we get out there, we will be, more spiritually evolved, and when we meet these spirit fused beings, we would understand that they are going to have a different spirituality than experience than we are going to have, because we're father fused. Our experience is going to be very different from them being creator son fused with spirit. And so, but essentially this becomes our galaxy. And then once we've spread out and we've got this galaxy, which our job is to bring this galaxy into light and life, and the galaxy next door, which is like the Pegasus galaxy, it's part of our local cluster. The seed planet in that galaxy, their job is to bring their galaxy into light and life. And then eventually all these galaxies become light and life, and then the whole universe is in light and life. And so on and so forth. But that is how the evolutionary process is supposed to take place. And it's meant to take a long time. Everybody wants everything done instantaneous. It's like, no. It's like, what I am talking about, I'm talking about a process that is going to take tens of billions of years to complete. And as it should. Because the Father does things in the slow and perfect way. And it's when you're trying to preserve free will, it's the only way that you can do things. It's like, it's like when a teacher's teaching you. It's like, the teacher could just rattle that shit off, as fast as they can. Is that going to do the student any good? No, it does the student zero good, because the student isn't learning. All the teacher's doing is just talking to themselves. It's like, I've had math teachers like that. It's like, they put a formula up on the board, do, and then boom, answer. And we're just like, well, what the fuck? What did you do? And then they go over it again. Well, you do, boom, answer. And it's like, you still haven't explained it. You've shown me what you've done, but you haven't explained a fucking thing.
I don't know how to do it.
Yeah.
And your job is to make me know how to do it. So,
Believe me, I've had these conversations with teachers in college and university. And they, some of them didn't like me very much because of that. But I mean, to me, it was just like, you're just being a poor teacher. And so, but then you hit that right teacher that will slow down. Frank was the best at that. My physics instructor in college, Frank was an absolute master. He would just slow right down and just be like, well, first of all, boys, put this part of the equation together. And you'd just be like, yeah, and then what this does, and this will do this, this, and this for you.
Yeah.
And then once you got, now I got this figured out, now we'll move on to the next part of the equation, and blah, 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 and it'll do this for you. And then he'll go down through all the numbers, and then in the end, you've got this big formula, and there's your answer. He taught us a quadratic equations. He taught us how to build them ourselves, so that we weren't reliant on plug and play equations. He wanted us to understand so that we can do it. And now, by the time I was done that class, at the end of the year, I could build my own equations from the ground up. Nice. All you had to do was give me a properly worded statement with values, and then I could write the formula. There was no plug and play, and that is how it's supposed to be done. That is how you learn, and that is how we are supposed to learn as we move out into the universe. We learn from experience. Experience is the only real currency in the universes. Period. There's nothing else, because without experience you've got nothing. You don't even have wisdom, because it takes experience to gain wisdom. Because it's like I prayed for wisdom when I was younger. Did I get wisdom? Hell no. It took time and it took experience. What the Father did for me, because I wanted wisdom, what my Father did for me so that I would get that wisdom, is the Father would open up paths for me to have experiences which gave me that wisdom. So that, you know, now that I'm at this end of life, you throw you give me a scenario, and I do it to my son. He tells me a scenario, and I'm just like, run very, very fast away. And then my son's like, why? Because I said, because I was like, if this person is not helping themselves, then all they're doing is bleeding you dry. I was like, you need to expect a person to come and meet you halfway, especially if it's in their best interest. In fact, if it's in their best interest, I prefer that they come like 2/3 to 3/4 of the way, and I will help you out for the last part of it. But because I'm not here to do all the work for you.
Yeah.
I don't.
Wisdom equals knowledge plus experience.
Exactly. Yes. This is what and that's the other, and that was another gift that the Father gave me, but it took time to develop. Is that the Father gave me the gift of being able to read very, very quickly and to assimilate knowledge very, very quickly. But that actually came over time, by learning different techniques. And once I learned the techniques, boom, 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 and now, at this end of my life, well, you know what? I'm actually wiser than most people my age.
That's good.
Yeah, and it's and sometimes I look back and I'm just like, well, how the fuck did that happen? And I'm like, oh, because of opportunities I was given. Opportunities to, be a roadie. Opportunities to go work in mines. Opportunities to travel across Canada. Shit like that.
Yeah. If I think about it, I've had lots of different... probably the range of experiences I've had have been maybe broader than the average, I would think. I grew up, going between the United States and Canada, and I was born in Massachusetts, and we lived there for a while. We had a small chain of retail import stores, Eastern import stores. And then when, in about 1985, I was getting old enough to start school. So my maternal grandfather had this farm, and he was getting a little older, and he said, do you want to come up and live on this farm? And so we did. And then I went to grade school and high school in Canada. Then I went to Oklahoma State University in the United States. I studied it. I majored in plant and soil science because I wanted to be a farmer. And then I took some extra things like a semester of surveying, history of aviation. I got my pilot's license through Oklahoma State University. Then history of aviation, some instrument flying ground school also. Timber harvesting, timber products. What else? I did a couple of things to kind of round out my last semester because I'd completed most of the things.
But you say that's cool.
I did all this different stuff. I farmed in Oklahoma, I farmed in South Dakota, sort of. I farmed here, and done all sorts of things.
And that, to me, like, that is super cool because you got the experience of living on both sides of the border,
right,
and seeing how people are.
And in several different, we were, for the first 5 years of my life, we were almost nomadic because the stores, we kept them going for a while, but they were kind of on the way down. People weren't. It was after the oil crisis in the 70s and stuff, and people weren't buying stuff, so we closed the stores. I went to, I think, 5 different kindergartens in New Hampshire, Massachusetts, Wisconsin, South Dakota, here.
Yeah.
And I also lived in Oklahoma. We went to Oklahoma and to Wisconsin, which is where each of my parents are from, twice a year for, 30 years or more now. So, more than that, 40 years. My whole life we went there.
Yeah.
Twice a year we would go to Wisconsin. Twice a year we would go to Oklahoma. And we just went to all sorts of different places. If we wanted to go somewhere and see it, we would go.
Oh, and then also to round off our conversation about the universes, we will never get an accurate count of how many galaxies are in our universe. Never. Because of the way the universe bends, we are always going to see a reflection around the corner, like a mirage on the horizon. And so,
we don't know how many are real and how many are reflected.
And
the reflected ones they're ones that we may know, but they look different because they're from a different angle or something.
They're at a different angle, so the light is going to be different, and and the way the light is going to reflect and travel from that angle of reflection is going to be very different, and so you're going to count it as a different galaxy.
Right.
But they're all the same, and that's because the universe is a Mobius strip, essentially.
3D Mobius strip,
It's a
4 or
3D
5D Mobius strip.
No, it's well, probably four-dimensional
Okay.
Mobius strip, and also the physical universe that we live in. This is the body of Nebedia. This is her body. This that is spread out. She is the substance of our time and space universe, and she's also the consort of Michael. And Michael, he's in his Michael's realm is the central universe of this local universe, and Nebedia, she shrouds that inner universe, and she basically blankets around the outside, and basically the inner universe and the outer universe are growing and coming together, and the idea is that if everything is planned correctly, as everything is evolving and coming together, so that by the time these two universes touch and begin to interact, our portion of this universe in our time and space needs to be brought into life and light before these two things begin to converge upon each other.
Talk
and
about
then,
clockwork.
Yes, it is. It really is clockwork. And then by the time when they get to the point when they converge, I mean, Michael's central universe is already in light and life. It's just us. And so when so they've got to help us to get to where they're at, so that when these two partitions come together, everything is in light and life, and then the whole universe will be in light and life. And the Urantia book tells us that there are no universes right now in light and life.
Not the complete universe.
No.
There's planets. There may be systems. And I was going to talk about that. You mentioned that the local universe is not necessarily a discrete galaxy. I found it interesting when they talk about there's planets, and then they have systems, constellations, and one other thing before they get to a local universe. And it doesn't really go by physical type of things. It's kind of like an electoral boundary or some kind of thing like that. They have this. They number the planets and they have things like that.
There's sections like systems and constellations.
Clusters.
But let's stick with the system, okay? Because it's easier, right? It's 1,000 planets that we can assume is 1,000 galaxies. Okay. They may not be they might not be right next door to each other, but because of the way the universe is shaped, our galaxy could be right here, but there could be another galaxy way over here that is considered part of our local system, but this galaxy between us is not part of our local system. It could be part of a neighboring system, but because even though on a physical level it looks like it's connected to us, but on a energetic level, that other galaxy is connected to us. And when you're dealing with subspace, to use our terms, we are closer to this galaxy, which is physically further away from us. We are closer through subspace than we are to this other galaxy that is closer to us.
Right. The one is closer to us physically, but the other, we resonate with it more.
Yeah, and so
on a higher level or something.
On a higher level, but also through subspace, so that if we traveled in subspace, which is how we are going to be traveling in the future physically, then we will be able to get to that galaxy a lot faster than this one that is closer. So, I mean, yeah, light speed, this one's closer, but subspace, that one's right next door. Yeah, it's a little
Wild.
bit confusing, but yeah, but it's how the threads attach to everything, and so it's not always apparent. Like looking out in the night sky, you would never be able to guess which galaxies are part of our local system. Not in a million years.
Wow.
Yeah.
Okay, I'm gonna round it out with one final question that I've been thinking about this for a while. The development of numbers, counting systems, mathematics, and it's I can't figure out how that all came about. I mean, it was incremental, et cetera, et cetera. People would count on their fingers and stuff, but how did numbers and mathematics kind of arise?
Oh, that began to arise when two guys were out hunting. Okay, two guys out hunting, and we kill 5 squirrels. Okay.
Yep.
So I've got 5 pelts sitting on the table. Okay, well, you were with me all day, so that one's yours, Peter. That one's mine. That one's yours, that one's mine. We got that one left over. How fucked, how, you can't even imagine how that one pelt left over fucked with primitive man's mind. Like, it totally fucked his mind. He's just like, he's looking at that, okay, yeah, okay, you got 2, I've got 2. What the fuck do we do with that one? What do we do with it? Until one day, one clever caveman was like, I'm gonna cut it in 2. And then, okay, that worked out the first time. No problem. So you take, so let's say you split it, okay? So you split it, okay. Now, actually, let's do this. So we split it, okay? I'm looking at your pile, and I'm looking at my pile of pelts. You got one squirrel bigger than mine. Or worse yet, when one of us cut the one squirrel in half, one of us had a bigger half than the other.
Bigger half, yeah. That
exactly.
That really messed with us.
So you know, Buddy goes home at night and he's really thinking about this shit. So now he's thinking, and the only thing that he can do in his cave or hut or tree or wherever he's staying in, he's like, okay, okay, that makes sense. But those are 2 different sizes. We've got a problem. We've got a huge problem. So now, you know, now we've got to figure out how to do fraction. But that's basically how it started out.
Sure.
Because it started out with people going back home after a good day's hunt. They split the catch, but then you're like,
he got the, or someone had bigger half of something.
Yeah, or
even if they have the same, even if they each have the same number, one's bigger, or how? Yeah.
Exactly. So now, you know, fairness comes into it, and fairness is going to come about once the primitive man starts to experience spirituality. Because fairness is one of the attributes of spirituality. And it's like, well, that's not fair. Now, I might come and talk to you about it, and let's say, like, you don't give a fuck. It's like, well, fuck you, I got the bigger squirrel, I don't know what to tell you. It's mine now. Well, you know, now we've got a problem. So, you know, or you might say, well, I'll tell you what, next time you get the bigger squirrel. So, you know, there's compromises. So it's either going to be a fight or there's going to be compromise. Right. That's really what it would come down to. And so now, after a while, primitive man begins to see the value. of being able to count and divide things. So imagine that going on for 100,000 years. And so eventually, yeah, you begin to learn, they begin to learn to count. I mean, you know, they definitely didn't call it what we do. I mean, we say 1, 2, 3. French say 1, 2, 3. German is...
Ein, zwei, drei.
Yes. And so, yeah, it just goes from there until finally you end up with a system where it works. But it took time for primitive man. This is why primitive man...
No, I figure it must have. Yet couldn't have come into being all at once, and that's what I'm understanding more. As long as I, you know, it's okay. This thing which seems so simple. Well, how was it developed? What? Okay, this is what must have happened, and it took you know ages, literally ages.
Literally ages. And here's the interesting part. Once primitive man began to learn to count, that's when primitive man started planning warfare. Like before warfare, there were raiding parties, either for women or for food or resources. So, I mean, that were the two reasons. I mean, they didn't really go to war. You would just raid the neighboring village, take the women that you wanted or needed, and whatever resources you want. So, I mean, which caused the other village to do things to protect themselves, and, you know, and vice versa. So, war really didn't, like, war to the point to where you really started planning shit out, didn't actually come about until man began to be able to count higher than 10. Then that's when we started developing war and warfare. And then that went on for quite a while after that. And so, I mean, that's just history.
Okay. All right, well, thank you very much.
Mm-hmm.
We'll,
Damn.
I'm going to sign off here, and maybe we'll be at another time. Thanks for watching.
Thanks for watching. Y'all have a great day.